House rules in Warhammer 40K. So a number of years back, I went to a tournament with Brother Captain James, and he was running his Ultramarines. Solid list, solid players. And this was in 5th or 6th edition when we had kill points. So essentially take all of the units on the table, assign 1 point to each unit, and at the end of the game, the person that has destroyed the most units, earning 1 point, 1 kill point for each unit, wins the game. It was kind of one of the ways that Games Workshop was experimenting with MSU, dealing with MSU, multiple small units, and some other list exploits rather than kind of balancing out 40K. What this did was make transport heavy or weaker army lists that relied on cheap, fast transports. At the time, Orcs and Dark Eldar. Space Marines also, to somewhat of an extent, taking a lot of Razorback or Rhino spam on there, being able to kind of balance that out against armies that maybe take some bigger, more elite, tough stuff. So we get to the tournament. BC does really well, as he always does, makes it up to the top tables, the top 3 tables, and he has a shot of winning second place, first place, but definitely second place, and he goes against an Orc player. Orc player has like 10 or 15 trucks, open-topped, really, really weak. BC's list has got a lot of assault cannon and las cannons in it. So you're looking at that and you're like, it's a kill point mission. I'm just going to pick off every single transport, and it might not be very Space Marine-like, but then I'm just going to kind of run, so run and gun. So he does that, gets, whatever, 15, 16 kill points to maybe 5. And then at the end of the game, his opponent says, well, actually, we have a house rule. Kill points for kill point missions, transports don't count. And it was like, what do you mean they don't count? And that vastly switched things to find out in that moment. So this brings up this idea of house rules in 40K, and how do you deal with them? How do you feel about them? Now, in any group, any gaming group, whether it's you and your friends, basement battle reports, or bigger club, or big at a store, a social event on there, every group is going to have this. Over time, you're going to gravitate towards certain missions. You're going to gravitate towards player personalities, certain ways of playing. And house rules might be something official in 40K, or they might just be kind of the way your group plays the game. I think another great example from years ago, playing at Comic Book Heaven, an excellent store, loved it there. Bishop was amazing at running it and making everyone feel very, very welcome. Some of the terrain there was really nice, but it was like this city fight building stuff that you really couldn't stand stuff on. There's a couple places you just couldn't go, although it looked like you could put some models there. Over time, it was just such a pain because you'd put your stuff up there, get it perfect, it would fall. You'd put it back up, it would fall. Someone would roll some dice, it would fall. And just spending the time doing that, this kind of house rule evolved. Everyone just kind of knew it. For these terrain pieces, you don't put stuff up. You don't deal with anything on there. It's kind of impassable. So house rules like that might kind of push forward. My thought on them, and this kind of goes back to a previous podcast, it's one thing to lose a game because of tactics. It's one thing to lose a game, as I have many times, because you're just going to roll away on the dice and see what we can do. You can't give me an amazing moment and not expect me to go for glory on there. That just happens. I may be sad face about it, but it happens. But where you feel frustrated in 40K, where you feel like the game is not fair if you lose, is when you feel powerless, when you feel like you were operating under one set of rules and then you find out there's a secondary set of rules on here. So I make it a point, and I think it's good for all house rules, when someone new comes to the group, or it's the first time you're playing someone, just like you say, hey, here's what's in my list. Have you ever faced Eldar before? Do you want me to explain any of my units beyond the total up and up? If there's a unit that has certain abilities or powers, make that known. When we set up the table, I like to pause for a second and say, hey, how do you play with terrain? I don't want to make any assumptions about any of the terrain on this table. How do you want to play it? Or if they say, well, I don't know, how do you want to play it? Well, here at the club on this table, we consider this type of terrain and this and this. Get everything up front. Roll for mission, or let's play a mission. Okay. Are there any kind of special rules or things to look at in the mission? It's just spending 2 or 3 or 4 minutes up front injecting any house rules or explaining any ways that you might play 40K. I find that just undoes like 99%, 99% of the situations that might arise in dealing with house rules.